What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be discussing how to launch a clothing brand even if you don't know how to design. When I first started my brand Pathos of Things about 5 years ago in 2019, I had no idea how to design. I actually went to college for music and I was a touring drummer for a while. I didn't anticipate becoming a fashion designer at all. I didn't anticipate starting a brand, but it happened naturally. And now here I am 5 years later. I had to make a decision early on whether I wanted to learn about designing and become a designer, or instead learn how to outsource the design so I could focus on other aspects of the business. I find that creative directors and brand owners fall into one of those two categories, whether they end up being the designer and everything is based on their vision, or they handle teams and outsource the designs to said teams. My name is Chris Drago. Like I said, I've been running a brand called Pathos of Things for about 5 years now. And I make videos on YouTube documenting my process so I could become 1% better every day at being a creative director and brand owner. This video was requested by a couple different people in the comment sections of other videos I made. I'm taking a different approach with this video, using slides and talking over bullet points and providing anecdotal stories about my specific experience. This video is catered more towards beginners. I know a lot of my content recently has been catered to advanced people or people that have been running brands for a while. So hopefully this format is more digestible. All right, so let's say you're considering becoming a designer for your brand. Deciding to design your own clothing brand involves evaluating your role and understanding the implications of being the designer versus outsourcing. Making this choice is going to impact the creative control you have over your project, the time you'll need to invest into practicing design skills, and the cost. So first, really ask yourself, do you even want to be the designer for the brand? Some people get into making clothing brands because they want to be designers. And some people get into making clothing brands because they just like clothing, want to start a business, or they like e-commerce. If you design everything yourself, that gives you more creative control. It allows you to personally express yourself through the design, and you'll save money because you don't have to pay other designers. There's also a pretty serious time investment required when becoming a designer. I found that it's extremely time consuming, requires regular practice, and there's a super steep learning curve. Any skill set that has a steep learning curve is going to come with frustration, especially in the beginning. Because I was coming from a music industry background, a lot of the terminology and concepts related to designing clothing or running a clothing brand were completely foreign to me, which made me realize that I just need to go extremely hard every day if I'm going to learn the skill of designing. And it ended up taking years before I was actually comfortable putting out pieces with my designs. Hundreds of hours of frustrating practice went into that, and it didn't always pay off the way I wanted to or expected. I find it can be pretty soul-crushing when you spend a lot of time on something, let's say a t-shirt design, just to put that t-shirt out and then have no one buy it or people think it's actually garbage, which has happened to me many a time. If you decide to outsource the designing, you'll get to take advantage of professional expertise from people that have already put in the years of work, which gives you immediate access to skills and time efficiency. However, there are cost implications to outsourcing. Not only can it get expensive, but you're also relying often on other people, which can become frustrating in the long term, especially as you refine your vision. Maybe one day you decide, okay, I've been outsourcing for a while, but I actually really have my own idea for this, and I don't want to rely so much on other people. Which brings me back to the concept of creative control that I was talking about a little bit earlier, which for me personally is extremely important. I want to make sure that I have 100% creative control. Anything that is not designed by me follows strict guidelines that I created. So that way, no matter what, if I'm working with other people or on it completely by myself, my vision remains intact. I think this is one of those things that beginning designers might not fully understand until they actually end up in a situation where their creative control is at stake. Feeling like you don't have creative control of your project or feeling like you're being held back by other people is not a very good situation and can lead to burnout. Okay, next is learning design basics. To become a designer, start by learning the basics of design through online courses and beginner-friendly software. That is how I started. Developing your style and building a portfolio are crucial steps. For online courses, I suggest platforms like Udemy and Skillshare. I find those two platforms have really good, affordable courses from people that have real skill sets, rather than someone who's just like an online guru that makes free content on YouTube. Which is ironic of me to say because some people would consider the content that I make to be guru-ish, and I put it up for free on YouTube. But for me personally to dig really deep into actually learning designs, I had to go beyond YouTube and spend some money. I'm not suggesting that you go and spend lots of money, and this is also not financial advice. Next is picking a design software to use. If you're really just starting out for the first time and you've never designed anything in your life before, I recommend starting with Canva and Adobe Express. They're super beginner friendly and allow you to get started right away. Canva and Adobe Express likely are not going to get you professional looking designs, but everybody needs to start somewhere, and this is the easiest way to start developing your skills immediately. I started in Canva and then upgraded to Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator has a pretty steep learning curve in my opinion, having never used creative softwares like that before. So what I ended up doing is I did about an hour of Adobe Illustrator practice every single night for years. I did that throughout the entire pandemic. That's how I was able to mock up the designs for my first drops. Creating mockups for clothing in Adobe Illustrator is great because you can easily export SVG files and PDFs to send directly to a manufacturer. I found when working with Chinese manufacturers, like Artisan Apparel Co., are great at taking my sketches from Adobe Illustrator and turning them into patterns and full garments. However, that really only got me so far. So now I use a platform called Clo3D to design all my clothes. Clo3D allows me to create 3D mockups with realistic dimensions based on industry standards for model height and weight, which allows me to make patterns that I then send directly to a manufacturer so they can get my sample right the first time. I know exactly what the sample is going to look like because Clo3D allows me to simulate the piece of clothing on a model as if it was real life. This saves me time because I don't have to go back and forth with the manufacturer about my tech pack and patterns. And it also is better for the environment because I use less fabric, energy, and water to create my samples. Utilizing a software like Clo3D to make my clothing actually adds a sustainability element to my brand, which I then use for my marketing. I can say my brand is taking steps towards being a sustainable, green-friendly brand by using 3D software to get my samples perfect the first time. For style development, you're going to need to experiment with different styles to find your unique voice. Like I've mentioned in a few of my prior videos, I started by making anime streetwear. This attracted fans of anime. After that, I did more underground rap music inspired styles and worked with underground rappers, which attracted fans of underground rap music. The aesthetic and styles that you pick are going to directly attract the type of person that is into that aesthetic. If you make anime clothes, you will attract anime fans. If you make clothes for outdoor sports, you are going to attract outdoor athletes. You might have an idea of what your unique voice is or what style it is that you really like. But I find that until you actually go for it and start a brand and start developing the name, the logo, and the aesthetic, you're not fully going to know. It's going to shape itself over time. I decided that I didn't want to be an anime streetwear brand anymore, so I pivoted and I don't really do that style anymore, and that's totally okay. If I hadn't done that in the past, I wouldn't have been able to shape my path for the future. As you develop your style, naturally you will also develop a portfolio. Every time you create a sample design, put it in a folder or a database where you can send it out to get feedback for improvement. I find that the fastest and easiest way to improve is to get feedback from people that are your friends, that are not your friends, strangers online, family, etc. There are lots of great Reddit groups such as r/streetwear where you can post your designs and then people can give you feedback directly. And then the last step in learning design basics is getting a solid industry understanding. If you're still watching this video, chances are you are interested in researching trends and studying successful brands because that's the kind of content that I make. So continue to do that because it's going to pay off in the long run. Now let's talk about delegating the design process. This is for those who choose not to design, or for those who choose to design in the beginning and then eventually delegate the design process later because they need more time for other things like running the brand or doing the social media. Finding the right designers and communicating your vision are essential for successful collaboration. The biggest thing about delegation is that it allows you to focus on other business aspects that aren't related to design. As soon as you start making sales, you will see how time-consuming it actually is to run a brand. If you're not delegating the design and you're doing all the designing yourself, chances are you're going to need to delegate other aspects of your business anyway. So either way, you are picking a skill to work on and then delegating whatever skill you didn't pick. If you want to be the designer, you got to learn how to delegate the other aspects of the brand. You want to delegate all the designing to other designers, then you're going to need to practice skills related to the brand that aren't designing. For absolute beginners and non-beginners, this tends to work for some medium-sized brands as well. You can use freelance platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, and 99 Designs to find designers. This will work up to a certain point until the brand becomes successful enough where you can hire in-house designers, or you're good enough at designing yourself from practicing over the years. Another great way of finding freelancers is just through networking. You can attend industry events or join online forums for connections. r/streetwear on Reddit is a great online forum where you can immediately connect with like-minded people in streetwear if that's your thing. If you're going to be trusting someone else to design based on your vision needs to be extremely clear. The way to effectively communicate your vision is through clear design briefs where you tell them exactly what you want and don't want, with mood boards and references. Otherwise, you are just letting the designer take a complete shot in the dark, and then 9 out of 10 times you're going to say, I don't like it, it's not in line with my vision. Then you're going to have to go back and forth with that designer until it's right, which could take a ton of time and money. So having your vision clear is going to save you in both of those aspects, where it's going to take way less time to get it right, and it's going to cost you way less money. Now that you have decided whether to design your own products or delegate the designing to someone else, it's time to start the clothing brand. Launching a clothing brand involves developing a strong brand identity, understanding production, and creating a marketing strategy. Luckily, I made a video last week where I break down my entire clothing strategy. I explain my approach to production. I provide sauce on manufacturers that I've used in the past, both locally in the US and internationally in China. I highly recommend checking it out on my channel, or you can click now on the screen. In addition to having a strong brand identity, understanding production, and creating a marketing strategy, you will also need to consider all of the legal and financial aspects of starting a brand. To develop your brand identity, define your mission, your values, and your ideal target audience. For production options, consider print on demand versus bulk manufacturing and sourcing. When I first started the brand, I did strictly print on demand. I used a company called Printful, and I created graphic designs in Adobe Illustrator. Once my graphic designs were done, I uploaded them to Printful, created mockups for my website, and then linked Printful with my Shopify store. Anytime someone placed an order on my Shopify store, Printful would print, package, and ship that product for me, so I wouldn't have to deal with any of the logistics. I don't use Printful anymore, but in retrospect, it was amazing for starting a brand and learning the ropes. Once I graduated from print on demand, I reached out to a manufacturer through Alibaba and started getting my clothes manufactured in China. Then I graduated to cut and sew, and now all of my pieces are fully custom. As far as the marketing strategy goes, you don't need a crazy advertising strategy. You don't need to be running ads on every single social media platform. In the beginning, the goal is just to post. Pick a social media platform and just post, whether that's a couple times a week, once a day, whatever it is. Show your process, show screenshots of things you're working on, photos of samples you're making, personal anecdotes and stories, and give people a look into the daily running your clothing brand, even if it's extremely small and you don't have a lot of followers. Just to make sure you're safe, you want to think about all of the legal aspects related to running a brand, like registering your business and understanding licensing requirements. I use LegalZoom to register my business as an LLC, and then I trademarked the word mark and logos for the brand. And lastly is financial planning. So budgeting and financial planning are essential and often get overlooked by beginners and small brands. Running a clothing brand, in my experience, has always ended up being more expensive than I anticipated. Whether that's for photo shoots, samples, bulk orders, shipping costs, you name it. If there's something with a price on it, it will usually be more expensive than anticipated, which is why budgeting and financial planning in platforms like Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets is extremely important. You want to be on top of all your finances. You want to track and log exactly how much it costs for anything, which then will also make it easier for taxes in the future. Whether you use QuickBooks or have an accountant, uploading a log of all of your finances is going to make the tax process extremely simple. Okay, thanks. So that's it for this video. This is a little bit of a new style for me, doing these slides like this rather than annotating a fig jam board. But if you made it all the way to the end, I want you to know that I really appreciate you. Please smash the like and subscribe buttons if you learned something new or found any of this valuable. If you'd like me to cover a different topic in the future, please leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.